Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Jade, and this is How to App on iOS, and this is our Friday, if you're in Australia, interview show. Thursday, if you're in the rest of the world, living in the past. We have the wonderful, the amazing, ultra-talented Rojas on the show today, and it's going to be really cool. We're going to kick off with a track from his band Shanghai. But first this.
Let's play.
We ain't done.
Howdy do. I hope everybody is doing well today. That was the amazing Shanghai. And welcome to the show. And that was Shenanigans by Shanghai. I should let you know that as well. Yes, I hope you're all doing well. What an incredible band, huh? What an incredible song. Yeah, I hope you're all awake and alive after that. So, if you're watching over on Facebook, welcome along, folks on Facebook. If you want to come and join us over here over at YouTube, you can join us at youtube.com/Jade Starr, or you can watch this simulcast live from howtoapp.on and you can check out the website and see everything there live each day. And check up on all our playlists and all that kind of stuff. So, yes, we have the amazing Lewis today on the show from Shanghai and a great many other bands. I met this amazing, cool artist many, many years ago, probably around 2005 or who knows, it's so long ago. He's absolutely... a mastermind of music, a genius in my view, a very big influence of mine. I've had the pleasure of doing music with him, following his musical career. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome to the show the amazing Lewis Rojas. How are you today, my friend?
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. I'm good, thank you. It's very early, isn't it?
It is.
Yes.
I'm an early riser anyway, so yeah. I'm fine.
Well, thank you very much for coming on the show with us today. I've been so excited about this because, as you know, been a really big fan and friend for a long time.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. It's my pleasure. And yeah, thanks a lot for what you just said as well. It's a lot to live up to. But yeah, you're right. We've been friends for a long time now, and it's a mutual respect, I think, that we have for each other, because same goes.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm going to kick off with the questions today because we've got a lot to get through. So, Lewis, what does music mean to you?
Okay, it's a big question, isn't it? It means everything to me. It's my life force. So basically, if it wasn't for music, I probably wouldn't even be here today talking to you. You know, from a very young age, music had, you know, obviously a massive impact on me. And as I grew up, that significance grew more and more. By the time I was a teenager, I knew that, you know, I picked up a guitar for the first time when I was like 15, 16 years old. I knew it was something that I was going to keep doing for the rest of my life. And ever since then, in particular, ever since joining my first band, writing my first songs, you know, I've just kept doing it. It's been a compulsion. You know, since then, I'm sure you can relate to a degree.
An addiction?
Yeah, it is. I mean, you know, I'm constantly writing and constantly having, you know, musical thoughts in my head all the time. So through the good and the bad times.
Yeah, definitely. Without music, I know I certainly would not have got through any of the bad times. It just is that it's that Band-Aid that keeps healing and keeps anyway.
Yeah, and the other thing is, like, you make a lot of you form a lot of relationships through your relationship with music as well. It's how you and I met, basically. And so many of my friends, so many friendships have been forged through music. And yeah, I think you're right. We met, yeah, probably 2005 or 6, something like that. So that's an enduring friendship.
Yeah, definitely. So, do you recall the music that was played in your house as you were growing up, and has any of that been an influence on you growing up into the future?
Definitely. Yeah, I was. Yeah, my parents had a decent record collection, I think. The albums that I remember first, or the artists that I remember that my mum and dad were into were Elton John, The Village People.
Wow.
Yeah, so like I think the first 7-inch record that I ever owned that was mine, like I think one of my uncles gave it to me, was Macho Man of all records by the Village People. But yeah, I mean, as well, there was Chicago. I remember that record there, and also I remember my dad had a bunch of compilation albums that had like hard rock stuff on there, like Akadaka, AC/DC and things like that. And yeah, I remember that from a very young age, like 3-4 years old, and staring at. There was this particular album that I remember it had like a skull on the front of it, and like in a desert or something, and had Akadaka on there as this compilation record. Rose Tattoo was on there and things like that. And I remember just staring at it for hours and thinking, oh yeah, look, what's this? Like this skull. And yeah, like, and I was young. I didn't know what metal was or hard rock was, or what all the genres were. It was just music, and there was the Bee Gees as well. My parents were into that. And what's the other one? Oh, and then I think one of the first bands that I actually got into, and I think Riley said the same thing, was Kiss.
Same here.
Yeah. And you guys were kind of ragging on Kiss a bit, and I understand why.
Yeah.
And there's still a few tunes where I'm like, hey, that's all right. Like a lot of their stuff's like pretty mediocre, I'd admit, but there's still a few tunes where I'm like, yeah, man, I was made for loving you, baby. I still reckon that's a cracking tune.
Yeah, there's definitely a bunch of, there's a good handful of tunes from Kiss that really rock, and then there's like, Gene Simmons kind of the vault.
Yeah, and so I even remember having the Kiss doll. Remember they had dolls?
I had them too, man.
They were like Barbie doll size Kiss
the
dolls.
Big boots.
Yeah. And I remember going with my mum to some shopping centre, and they had all the Kiss dolls, the display, and I wanted Gene Simmons, but I think he was sold out. So mum got me Paul Stanley. So,
I had the whole setup on my wall. I even had this they're like these plastic plaques with like a 3D face of them popping out, like from the what's the album with the 4 of them? Is it Dynasty with the 4 photos? Yeah. So it was that, just in separate little plastic 3D molds kind of thing. Yeah.
I think that was my first inkling that you could become a fan of a band, like And I didn't even, at the time, it wasn't like I was into the music, really. I was into the image.
Same thing. They really were like that, weren't they? Just in, like as a kid, definitely. Like the image was so important.
Yeah.
And we said this with the interview with Riley. I was absolutely fucking shattered when they took off their makeup. I was like, no, man, you can't do that.
Well, they did that one album. It was called Unmasked.
Yeah.
And it was like they were threatening to take the mask off, but they on the artwork they take the mask off and they still had the makeup on. It was like
it was a false positive,
ripped off. And then when they finally did do it, I think most people were like, no, like put the makeup back on.
We don't want to see Ace Frehley's severe scarring after all that makeup. Yeah, that's what comes of it too. I mean, you're wearing that makeup every day. It'll kill your face. Like that's some serious clown makeup going on.
But it worked for them. It helped them sell a lot of albums and a lot of merchandise. So.
Definitely. So what are your musical influences these days? I can see one right behind you on a black piece of vinyl there.
I can't do whatever. Influences these days, no one sticks out in particular. I guess my contemporaries, like when I hear other, artists that I know that I've worked with, or this is who I know, I'll get influenced a lot by their stuff, and and I still have like the same influences that I had, decades ago, or whatever. Mr. Bungle being one of them. I used to be really into John Zorn a lot. I still check out what he does. But a little bit less obsessed by it now. I used to be onto every release before, I still into that. I'm into, I guess one thing that I'm really into is soundtracks, movie soundtracks. Like I usually end up, if I watch some movie and I like the soundtrack, I'll go check out the soundtrack and chuck it on my iTunes and listen to that. I'm into. I think if you hear Shanghai, especially the last album, you can probably tell I'm into that kind of orchestral symphonic sound, or and not only that, just the utilization of music when you put it to image, like a film or a TV show or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I'm influenced mainly by film music, I think, these days.
Yeah, it definitely shows it in your music. And we share a lot of the same musical influences. Like, I was obsessed with Zorn for the longest time, Mr. Bungle, of course. Mike Patton's one of those, Mike Patton's my comfort blanket. Like, I take him to bed every night and hug him. And wake up and he's there going, rah, 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 rah.
Yeah, no, he's extremely talented man. He's a massive influence, I guess, and I enjoy his drive. Like, he's always doing something, so he's very prolific, and I admire that because it's hard to be that way. You're very prolific as well, Jade. I'm actually amazed how much content you put out these days, especially with these live chats and your How to App broadcasts and stuff. It's like everyday thing, right?
Yeah, every day, sometimes twice a day now. So
wow.
I think I think sometimes it's that I missed out. Like there's a few years that went by when I really wasn't putting out content. So I feel like I'm trying to catch up in a way to put out stuff. I mean, that's going to lead me into a question. Hey, do you find yourself to be a bit of a perfectionist or a control freak?
Yeah, yeah. That's probably. I think the people that play in bands with me, especially Shanghai, they would use those words to describe me. I guess. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. Like, in some ways, it's. I guess it's a bad thing because it takes longer to complete works. But I'm also a big believer that it's done when it's done. Like. If something takes, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, 10 years, as long as you get there in the end, and as long as it's what you want the end product to be. So yeah, I do. When I think perfectionist, not necessarily. I mean, in some ways, yes, but at the same time, I think you were talking to Riley about this in previous chat that you had with him. Riley is in Mechanical Black in Shanghai as well, and I think you guys were talking about the utilization of the studio and this and that, and he was talking about how he kind of goes in and sort of chops up bits of his performances to get them spot on and all that, and I do that too sometimes, depending on the band, depending on the song. But then there's other things which I let it breathe. I leave the human element in it. So sometimes something is sung a certain way or played a certain way. It might not be 100% perfect, but it just has the vibe. And sometimes when you try to overcorrect that, it takes the vibe out of it. And, so you can kind of kill the idea by overdoing it, like being too perfectionist about it. And I try to sort of live somewhere in the middle there where I try not to overwork the idea and leave the, what made it special, leave that in there as well. So I don't know. Sometimes you got to live with some happy accidents, happy mistakes and stuff that work.
Yeah, for sure.
But, yeah.
I'm just going to pull away for a second because I know we've got a massive crowd here and I want to say hello to everybody. So thank you for being here, everyone. So I probably missed the beginning of the chat, so I'm scrolling up a bit. So it's Zelinsky, Scott, Russ, Alex Backus, Gary Hubbs, Tom Rochelle, Cold Acre, one of our fantastic mods here. Pete Johns, another awesome mod. Joshua Good. Did I say Russ? SM Boss. I'll probably say names over and over again. Scrolling down, let me find Timothy. Hello. Dr. Zorders. I've got these stupid things I'm starting to fall into with this show every day, Lewis. Benedict Stewart, hello. How are you? Good to see you here. Danny Broderick, welcome to the show too. Glad you're here. Lady Rodeline, hello. And I think I'm getting to the end here. We'll get through all my shout outs. Everyone's saying hello to each other. Deep Gravity, g'day. I know I haven't said Andy Goldsby, hello, welcome to you too. If I've missed you out, throw your name in there as I scroll to the end and I'll catch you. Here we are, we're right at the end now. So did I say Russ? Good to see you. Mark Tanner, hello. And there's, look, Well-Fed Productions down there. Who's under that?
Hey.
That's you, is it? I never know who's on it, like if you control
It's always me. It's always me.
Always you.
Yeah.
So getting back to, guys in the chat, if you have any questions for Lewis, feel free to type them. Just put question in bold so I can see it. I'll try and catch it with my four eyes over here, and we'll ask Lewis that. Talking about perfectionism, you said, like, you know, you don't, or being a control freak, you don't know if it's a good or bad thing. I guess it depends on the kind of control freak. I mean, if it's nastiness and it's somebody who treats the band like shit, which, you know, throughout history there've been artists who are known for that.
Yeah.
And from me playing with you and working in a studio with you, I know that's not the case. From my experience, and we're very similar. I am a bit of a control freak myself too. So much so that I don't play in bands with anyone anymore because I hate waiting for people to... I hate relying on people to come back with the goods, because I know I get like, come on, hurry up, what's going on? And then I feel bad for pressuring them. So I think it's more of a self-guilt. It's a self-guilt thing for me that I'm like, I know I'm controlling, but I can't help it.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention that as well, about, because I discussed about the perfectionist side, but then the control freak aspect, again, that it's quite fitting. I think there's some people that would describe me that way, and I guess I am to a degree, but the other side of that coin is that I also really enjoy and get off on collaboration. I can create music on my own. I can write music. I can record it. I can program everything. I can play everything. I can play drums, bass, guitar, sing, play keys. You know, put it all together myself. But I also really enjoy the collaborative part of making music, and so that's where over the years I have learned that lesson of, if you're too much of a control freak, people don't want to hang out with you. They don't want to make music with you. And, you know, and so to be patient as well, and understanding of other people's situations, or, you know, their abilities, or their, you know, how much time they can offer to a certain project or whatever. And it can be very frustrating. Like you were saying, like waiting around, you feel like you're waiting around for other people sometimes. And I totally get that. Sometimes it's worth it, sometimes not so much. But, you know, like I said, that the art of collaboration is kind of, it's where I'm at. It's where I get the most satisfying experiences, I think. Because one thing's doing it all on your own and listening back to it and going, yeah, I'm awesome, you know. But another thing is, you know, the process, and, you know, making friends along the way, and like some of my proudest moments, even on the Shanghai album, there's songs that I, you know, wrote, like the whole thing from start to finish, and then there's other songs where some of the other guys, you know, they've we've co-written the song, and they're like some of my favorite songs on the album. Like, it's really rewarding, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and when I say, like, about myself, that I've stopped collaborating kind of thing, that was true for a period of time. But since I've been doing this show and been hanging out some of the groups I do on Facebook, that I've really got back into collaborating. I like this collaborating online thing.
Yeah.
I've collaborated with many artists in the last year, from overseas, and just with little cover projects and things. So I'm starting to get pulled back into it, which I'm happy about, because you know, at the same time, I like that control thing, but you miss collaborating with people, because, you know, music is people.
True, yeah. And don't get me wrong, I wasn't like sort of having a crack at you.
No,
you know,
I didn't take it that way.
Because like I do a lot of my work, like it's me, like even if in collaborative stuff. So like the Shanghai album, I keep bringing that one up, but that was a big project, and a lot of it was me isolated, like, you know, editing stuff, you know, mixing stuff, fine-tuning things, like just me, like for months and months and years. Like, even though I was collaborating with the rest of the band, like a lot of the time was spent with me, basically in isolation, fine-tuning everything.
Yeah,
So,
I remember.
you know, I totally get I totally get, and plus the other projects I've done, where I've just done it by myself, and I'm still proud of that. I still find it very rewarding, and I totally get it, especially if you're a control freak kind of person and perfectionist. You really want your vision to be there. Then doing it on your own is obviously, or being like the main person at the helming the ship is obviously very, it's that's how to do it. That's how you do it. But yeah, in a band like something like Shanghai, I could never perform live like on my own necessarily, like the way that it deserves to be performed. And like it's a 9-piece band, so and plus more. Like we had guest musicians on the album as well, so it's like a mini orchestra. And yeah, obviously I couldn't pull that off on my own.
For sure. So I'll get to Shanghai, but before I do go there, so you're primarily a guitarist. Was this the first instrument you learned to play?
No, the first instrument that I had, my lovely mother, she bought me an organ.
Wow.
And
I would not have pictured that.
Yeah, she really wanted me to play keys. She wanted me to play piano and stuff. So she obviously, wasn't going to buy me like a grand piano or something. So she bought me this organ, and I remember I was pretty young. It was before my brother was born, so I was under 5 years old, and it came with like she didn't get me any lessons or anything. Just here's an organ, put in my bedroom. It's like cool, but it came with like a booklet that had the fingering and stuff to songs. And I remember the first song I ever learned was Silent Night. Nice. And I remember the satisfaction of being able to because you got an organ. It's like great, you start hammering away at it. It sounds like shit, but then it doesn't sound like I didn't know any songs. I was a kid. But then I sat there and studiously over hours like reading this thing and that moment where I'm like, oh yeah, that's the melody. Oh wow, like, and kind of got it and was like very proud of myself. And I was playing like the bass notes and the melody notes and stuff. And I was like, oh and yeah, the usage of two hands. I got it pretty quick. Like I'm not a great keys player by any means, but I tinker around a bit. And I didn't start playing guitar until I think I was around 15 or so, and formed my first band when I was 16. So yeah, there was the organ and then the recorder in primary school. They for some reason always got us to learn the recorder. Yeah, and it's actually like if you play it well, it's not a bad sounding instrument. But when you have a class full of third graders, it can sound particularly horrible. But yeah, I can still play the recorder. I can play Amazing Grace. I can play that on the recorder still. Yeah, I memorized that one.
I think the first song I learnt on organ. I don't know if anybody's had an organ when you were young. Throw in the chat the first song that you remember learning on it, or the recorder. I remember the first song I learnt was what's it called? Oh, Can You Wash Your Father's Shirt? It's super old, weird song. And my mum taught me how to play that. So it's yeah. All right. So you picked up a guitar, and do you consider yourself now as more of a multi-instrumentalist?
Yeah. I there's sometimes when I write, like a lot of the time when I write, I'm not writing for a specific instrument. Like I'm not like, I don't pick up a guitar and start writing tunes. Like I used to be that way, but I haven't been that way for a long time now. And so, I guess guitar is my main instrument, 100%, but I'm pretty proficient on drums as well. And I really, really enjoy playing drums and composing for drums and working with drummers as well. And so I'm really, and then like I said, I tinker around on the keys a lot. A lot of my compositions go to the keyboard. I've got my keyboard right here, but I own about 6 or odd keyboards and stuff, and synthesizers and different things. And I see myself gravitating towards that a lot when I'm writing, especially if I'm writing parts for other instruments that I'm not well versed in, like strings or something like that. Yeah. But guitar's always a focus, but it doesn't have to be necessarily. So yeah, multi-instrumental. What I like to call myself is a composer slash producer slash songwriter, like that kind. Yeah, well, sorry, composer slash producer. That's kind of where I'm at these days, where my head's at.
So we've had some answers in the chat too, so we'll scroll back here. So Lady Rodeline's first was Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Russ was Three Blind Mice. Sion was Mary Had a Little Lamb. Pete Johns was I learnt a song called Little Indian Boy. I know Little Indian Boy. Probably not any kids' music books these days. Ed Zelinsky.
Stu said chopsticks.
Chopsticks. Ed Zelinsky. Yeah. I learnt the theme from Hawaii 5-0.
Oh, nice. That's a great theme.
What a big song to be the first thing that you learnt. Yeah. That's complex as hell.
We've Shanghai's played that song live, actually.
Yeah.
The Hawaii 5-0 theme. It was the best part about the show back in the day.
The Buddy Guy version of Mary Had a Little Lamb. The Buddy Guy version. All right. A specific version, of course, from SM Borthwick. So... All right, so as you mentioned, Shanghai is a 9-piece band, and it's a massive range of styles. Before hooking up with such a big band, like, did you have from the beginning, like, a concept of what Shanghai was going to be about? Was there a long road, a long vision ahead that you built up to doing this, or how did you get to hiring these people to start making this band? Sorry. Yeah,
well, the band is me and my friends, and it still is. So the first band that I ever formed in high school, I was about 16. I could barely play a guitar, but I had a group of friends, and someone could play drums, and someone was going to play bass, and I had another friend that was a guitarist, and it was like, oh, Lewis will play guitar too. And we just formed this band, even though none of us could really play. And it was called Devious, And we were a bunch of deviants. We were really into metal, and we were listening to Metallica and Megadeth and all that stuff. And so we started playing together as Devious, and we played a few shows, and like at school, like the talent quests and things like that, and as well as a few local gigs and stuff. So there was that, and that kind of, I really, really enjoyed being in a band, and I quickly took control of that band and was writing songs and all that kind of stuff. And everyone, like the other guitarist, my friend Tony Lockett, he actually already knew how to play guitar. I'm not formally trained or anything. I never had guitar lessons or anything like that. But he showed me a couple of chords and, the power chords and stuff like that. And away we went. And then next thing you know, I was kind of like pulling ahead of him a bit. And in terms of playing, he's still a great guitarist now. But I just think at the time, I don't know, I was one of those kids that had locked themselves in their bedroom and, come home after school and lock myself in there and play along to records and stuff, Metallica records or whatever. I taught myself to play like the first 4 albums, like from start to finish, including the guitar solos and all that stuff from Metallica, and just by ear. And anyway, like,
well, we didn't have the internet then, did we?
We did not have the internet.
You had to buy a music book.
Yeah, there was those tablature books you could get.
Who could afford that?
I got my mum to buy me a couple of those, and a lot of it was just done by ear.
Yeah.
And which was pretty hard, especially with vinyl records. Like you'd have to get, what's that bit? Put the needle back and stuff. And so yeah. Anyway, there was that band that I had, and I found that really, really rewarding. And so I was writing a lot of my own stuff. And then the funny thing is, my first recording studio that I had was basically 2 old tape decks. And so on one tape deck, I think I had a cheap Casio keyboard with a drum machine. On one tape deck, I'd like record the drum beat off the Casio or whatever. And then what I'd do is then I'd play that back and record on the other cassette deck my guitar or something. And then I'd be multi-tracking by recording, bouncing stuff from tape recorder to tape recorder. The end result sounded horrible. Like it was all the hiss and the room noise and out of time and stuff. But, like it was a way of getting my ideas down. Obviously things have changed drastically now. I think like kids these days, they have it awesome. They can record on their phone and stuff, like, and all the tools are there. But back then in the day, as you know, it was like extremely difficult. It was very expensive too to actually go to a studio or something and get your ideas there. So you had to find a way. And so eventually I did move on to having one of those, what do they call that, Porter Studios, the little cassette.
The Tascam or something.
Multi-track cassette. Yeah, I had a Yamaha or something or other. And it was actually 8 tracks on there. And so then I could finally start, properly producing stuff. And that's when I was writing music for different kind of bands that I imagined starting, and one of them was Shanghai. Eventually, I just started. I had this sort of crazy. I had the rock music stuff and the metal and all that stuff, but I had this sort of crazy avant-garde stuff that I was trying to put together, and I started doing that in my early 20s. But anyone that I played some of that stuff to, I had these guitar riffs that went on to be Shanghai songs. I played with some pretty good drummers back in the day, and I'd pull that out. I pulled those riffs out, and the drummers wouldn't know what to play. Yeah, that's the one I had, the MT8X. That's exactly
what a guess, huh?
Yeah, no, that's it. I actually want to. I want to buy one of those. I don't own one anymore, but I've got these old tapes that I.
Same here, man. I got a whole bag of them.
That I recorded on that thing, and I'd love to be able to digitize them.
They're really expensive though on eBay.
They are,
I want a Tascam 4-track one because I got heaps of tapes. But people want a lot of money for them.
They do, yeah, they do. So eventually, I'll spring for one, I guess. There was I think a couple months back, there was one on eBay, and I was umming and ahhing whether to get it. It was like $500-600 or something, and I couldn't bring myself to do it, but I will eventually.
The fear of it not working.
So this MT8X, I spent hours and countless hours and hours and hours meticulously recording these demo tapes, and like I said, some of it ended up being Shanghai. But before Shanghai, there was another band that I was in. I was actually in a band when I was in my early 20s, after I'd left high school. It was like, oh, what am I going to do? Am I going to go to uni, or what am I going to, blah blah blah. And I told my mother, I was like, I want to go to audio engineering school. I want to be an audio engineer, and so we enrolled in SAE, the School of Audio Engineering in Sydney, and I went there, and it's one of the first times I was in a. It wasn't the first time, but it was one of the first times that I was in control in a proper recording studio, and they had the smaller studio, which was a 16-track reel-to-reel machine, and then they had the big one that was 24 tracks. And this big SSL desk, and it felt great, and I learned a lot during that. And that was back in the day before, there was no iOS, there was no digital audio workstations and stuff like that. Pro Tools was not a thing. It was very early on in Pro Tools, so it was all tape-based recording that I learned. Mixing desks, outboard gear, compressors, all that stuff. Reel-to-reel tape machines. And I'm glad that one thing that I'm glad of is that I've seen the transition from that old school way of doing things to how we do things now, and how much it's changed. I think the knowledge that I had from back then, though, it helps me still to this day. Have a good concept of recording and producing and mixing and signal flow and all those kind of things. But someone asked in the chat whether I use iOS.
Yep.
And I've got an iPhone. I think the first iPhone I ever had was the 3G iPhone. And,
we both got them around the same time, I think, and we're both like, ooh.
Yeah, that's it. And ever since then, I've constantly owned iPhones. My phone's has always been an iPhone. I've had. From there was the 3GS, the 4, the 4S, the 5, the 5S, 6. I think 6S is where I kind of put a pause. I didn't get
Same here.
A 7 or 8, and then I've got the 10. I've got my iPhone 10 now, and I've actually just ordered the iPhone 12 Pro. I ordered that last week, so hopefully that comes. And I've got an iPad Mini here, and my partner Chantal used to use Macs. She's got a PC, a Windows laptop now, but she used to use Mac, and I used to help her out, like sometimes setting stuff up on there or helping upgrade it and repair it and things like that. I'm a bit of a tech geek when it comes to computers, and so I've gotten to know iOS on the different platforms pretty well, I think. And it's funny because like my main workstation is a PC. It's a Windows-based PC, and I wouldn't have it any other way. It's what I'm used to. I find it really flexible and stuff. But by the same token, my house is full of Apple products. Like I've got a HomePod, I've got Apple TV.
Yeah.
We're pretty much in the ecosystem, the Apple ecosystem, and it's pretty fascinating what you can do now on such small devices. Like on my iPhone, one app that I do use is it's called MTSR. It's like you probably can't see this, but it's basically a little 4-track multi-track recording studio thing that I use to just like as a sketchbook almost, or a notepad for ideas. So sometimes if I'm out and about, I'll just hum. Yeah, that's it. I'll just hum into the phone. Like I'll hum a beat, and then loop that, and then I'll hum a bass line, and then I'll hum a melody, and et cetera, et cetera. And so it doesn't sound perfect. You can sometimes hear the traffic or trains going by or whatever, and aeroplanes landing. But it's about capturing the idea in the moment, so I don't forget things.
So you should have a look at the next time. So music memos from Apple. So it's a similar kind of thing. It doesn't give you multi-tracks like that, but what it does do, if you can just throw down like a guitar into the mic or hum something, and it gives you the option, like GarageBand, just to add a drum kit and a bass, and it analyzes what you've recorded and pulls it into time.
Yeah, okay.
I love that thing. That thing's so amazing. It's free too,
Yeah, no, I'll definitely check that out. Like that app in particular, it's just that I remember ages and ages ago, I was just I was having all these ideas and just forgetting them because
yeah,
by the time you get home, it's like, oh, what was that melody again, or blah blah blah. And so I just searched on my phone, and that's the one I found, and that's what I stuck with. I'm sure there's better ways of doing it. That's just something that I'm used to. And like I said, it's got that multi-track functionality. So it's pretty funny. Sometimes I might be at the train station or something, and I'm going or whatever, and then and people around me must think, what the fuck is that guy doing? It's like I'm writing.
Yeah, we can write anywhere we want these days. That's the beauty of the world now, like technology. You do have that flexibility and freedom to just pop ideas down like that. And my whole last EP, Metheist, came from me going for a walk each morning and doing the exact same thing, humming bass lines, going boo-doo, boo-doo, boo-doo. And we'd get home and grab the bass and play to it, and then everything was built around those hums. And within a month, I had an EP out. It's amazing how that shit happens,
And a good EP it is too. Like I very much enjoyed that. You were sending me previews of things early on, and I was like, this is really good. Like, it reminded me. I think I told you a little bit of kind of Slayer and that kind of vibe it had.
That was the point. I felt like there wasn't enough Slayer in the world anymore now that they're gone.
Yeah.
So I want to get on to Shanghai. So all these guys are your friends as well. And I know all the guys in the band too. And I mean, your partner Chantal is the lead singer. So this is more than just a band. This is a circle of friends. And how hard is it to maintain a collaboration between 9 people and more? Like you've had, other people. Is it a challenge?
It's hard. Yeah, it is a challenge. And yeah, like you're right. It's more like a family. I mean, my brother is in the band also, Chris.
Yep.
My partner Chantal is in the band. My best friend, but my longest friend, Alan Esquivel, he's the bass player. So I've known him like my whole life. Like he was a family friend. Davin, who plays sax, I first became friends with him in third class. We met in third class. Nick Sands, our drummer, I went to high school with. And then there's Grant on saxophone, who I guess I've known for... He joined the band in the 90s, so it's like over 20 years now.
Wow.
And obviously Riley's like one of my best friends, so and he's in the band as well. And Paul is in the band, and he's a good friend. But the point is that, like, you know, there's these, they've been long relationships in this band, and like they're more than the band. Like, you know, we're like, I'm friends and a brother and a partner to some of these people outside of the band as well. So sometimes it's difficult to separate those friendships and those relationships that you have with people outside of the band, separate that with the band, you know, working in a band environment together in that collaborative process. You know, songwriting and rehearsals and things like that. You know, there's been plenty of clashes and plenty of falling outs and things like that. But, you know, we make up and stuff. Like, no one's, you know, there have been a couple of people that have come and gone, but there's never been any drastic kind of dramatic, I'm leaving the band because I hate you all, or no one's gotten kicked out, or no one's, you know, there's never been any of that kind of thing in the band. It's basically an open door for people. There's been times where someone hasn't been able to commit that much, and because there's so many of us, we can kind of cover each other. And you know, as long as it's always been, as long as there's me and as long as there's Nick, like, playing drums. And even actually, there's been times where Nick hasn't been able to play drums, and we've had someone else. But I guess basically, as long as I'm in the band, it can function in some way. So it's a 9-piece band, but we actually have rarely done gigs as a 9-piece. Sometimes, usually there's someone missing, because they got another commitment or whatever, and so we manage. I think the smallest lineup that we've done live shows with is like as a 5-piece band. So we can go anywhere from 5 to 9 people for live playing. But then on the record there's the 9 of us, but then there's also the additional musicians. We had a string quartet with violin, 2 violins, viola and cello. They play on a lot of the tracks and fill out the sound a lot. So it was more like, you know, there was other guest musicians as well, so it ends up being more like a 15-piece mini orchestra for the album.
So,
sorry, I forgot the question you originally asked, but
no, you answered it beautifully, and that's going to go into my next question. I'll say hello. There's a few extra people who've popped in here. Hi, Stu and Metalhead Hippie. Hello, my friend. Good to see you. And I see a few people typing in the chat too. There's been a new app drop today, Lewis, which everybody's kind of buzzing about on iOS. So it's called Mixbox CS by IK Multimedia. I can see some people writing about it. Russ is writing about it. And folks, I can let you know, IK Multimedia reached out to me overnight and sent me a copy of it to play with and a copy to give away on Monday. So on Monday's show, one of you lucky folks is going to win one because it's worth about $70. And I haven't even opened it up yet. Very exciting, very exciting.
Yeah, that's cool.
So, like, with the band too, and Gary Hubbs has asked here, any slackers in the band, or is everyone self-motivated?
Yeah, I see someone else here, Rock Art Music, asked, said it must be difficult to keep 9 people happy, especially in the mixing process. Some people are more motivated than others. I think a lot of people in the band are happy to let me kind of do a lot of the grunt work, so that they try not to get too involved. I think when there's, you know, because I usually come to the band with like these days anyway, with pretty fully formed ideas. Yeah. So I'll basically be like, here's the song, but sometimes there is like room to play, you know, and they can add their stuff. But a lot of the time they'll come to me. Some of the guys will come to me with ideas for songs. Usually it's not fully formed. It's like riffs or like, you know, movements of a song, a chorus or a verse or something, and then they expect me to, you know, embellish that idea and make it a bit more, I mean, different. And then some others are just happy to kind of chill and be told what to play and stuff like that. In terms of, I mean, there are some people in the band, like Riley, for instance, who he's a composer as well. So so far with Shanghai, it's, you know, been pretty minimal where he's been able to kind of wet his beak in there, but he's contributed like some great stuff, some great playing. I think in future he really intends to sort of become more involved in the songwriting. And then some of the other guys like Alan and Davin, like they've been involved in the songwriting a lot as well, and I think they want more of their ideas in there, and which I'm happy about. Like that they get together. Alan and Davin actually live in Queensland. That's the other thing. There's a bit of distance. There's a bit of distance with us these days as well. So they because they live up in Brisbane together. Near each other, they get together and rehearse and like jam and sort of come up with ideas, and they send like little demos they do in the rehearsal studio. They send that stuff down to me and see, if just to show me where they're at, and if I can offer anything with that. And then when it comes to actually the recording and the mixing, like for instance with the Shanghai album, like I'm the one person that was there for every single take, every single recorded individually with all the people. We weren't all in the same room together at the same time ever. Our first EP, Saturator, which was actually recorded 2-tape on 24-inch tape, a Studer tape machine and a Neve desk. It was more of a band thing where everyone was there. That was a long time ago. Some different members in the band at that point as well, but that was cool because everyone was there. It was like this camaraderie thing, even during the mixing and the mastering even. Whereas Ultraviolent was a lot more, everyone was sort of busy and doing their own thing, and it was rare that we were all together. Yeah, that's Esoterica up on the screen there. I'm really proud of that one because, like I said, that was on just before the digital age kind of took off.
Yeah.
It was all analog tape, Actually, we also had to. There was the tape machine, and then we also had to have an ADAT, and 8-track. It was like an 8-track ADAT machine. So there was a digital element, but that was synced to the multi-track tape machine, and it was like a big job. And all the mixing it wasn't automated or anything. We had to, we were there on the board, like muting things and soloing stuff and writing the faders and kicking effects in and out, as like the mixing of the songs was just as much of a performance as the actual songs themselves. And then when you fast forward to something like you were just showing the other EP, The Battle for Mount Analog, or
this was only available on cassette, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I still have mine sitting down here on cassette. So
yeah, that was our mixtape, our 80s mixtape.
Yeah,
there was no other way to release it than on cassette.
And it has for you folks, I think you can only get this on Bandcamp. I've put the link in the description. So it has covers of One Night in Bangkok, The Orient Express, Passing Breeze, which is from the Outrun video game by Sega.
That's right, Outrun. Yeah.
Yeah, Battle of the Planets. Awesome cartoon, and The Birth of Odyssey, which is Monkey Magic.
Yeah,
Monkey Magic. If anybody remembers that, if you're old enough to, it's one of my favorite recordings of you guys because it's so different than the first album, and such amazing renditions of it. Like the One Night in Bangkok is fantastic. So
yeah, we got a friend of ours called Jade Katz. So he's a Sydney socialite, like really into music. He's played in bands and he hosts a lot of music nights and stuff like that. He has an archive here in Sydney called the Moo Meson Archive, which has all these old films and stuff. He's a massive film buff. But anyway, he's a character. He's an awesome guy, and I got to go down to his place and record the vocals for One Night in Bangkok, and that was really fun. And actually, this EP features Riley's first performance.
Yeah.
He wasn't technically in the band at the time, but I needed someone to basically play stunt guitar because I couldn't play it for Battle of the Planets. There's this sort of fast in the original song. It's strings, but we got Riley to play it on guitar. It sounds amazing. He did like a really, really good job on that. Another song on there I don't think you mentioned is Finale, so the last song, and that's from one of my favorite movies of all time, The Empire Strikes Back, the best Star Wars film. And for the longest time, I wanted to cover this song from the very early days of Shanghai. I always imagine. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, the saxophone.
Oh, I've got goosebumps, man.
Yeah. I'd
It's beautiful.
Yeah, for the longest time, I imagined that. I imagined Davin on sax, playing that, and us doing it in this sort of, cool jazz kind of way or whatever. And we finally did it, and I'm very proud of that interpretation of that tune. I mean, John Williams, the composer, is a master.
Yeah.
And a major influence. I was talking about film music and film composers. Like he's like at the top of the list. But yeah, it was a good time doing that EP. That EP, The Battle for Mount Analog, was like this sort of like a warm up thing to get the band ready to get the Ultraviolent done. The full length album that came after that. So it was like a bit of a tester. Like, can we do this? Can I record this stuff in my bedroom? Can I record this stuff at rehearsal studios and anywhere? And we did. I think it came out pretty well. And it helped inform where we were going to head with the Ultraviolent recording wise, because like I said, the first EP was done in a studio, 100% like 2-tape, very difficult to do, but we did it. Battle for Mount Analog was obviously done more digital,
and then to actual cassette tape,
and then dubbed it onto the cassette tape. Yeah, and that's why I called it the Battle for Mount Analog. It was like this, like I said, it was an homage to the 80s mixtape. But it was also an homage to, the analog way of doing things.
Yeah, I remember ordering my copy from you via PayPal and getting my little cassette in the mail.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a cassette player to play it on, but lucky I already had it like in a digital format. I'm just going to play because I see a few people here talking about they played Outrun. So here's a bit of Passing Breeze. You'll know this song, folks. Every time I hear it, this is so cool, man.
Get ready.
Yeah, man. This is my favorite song off this game.
This part reminds me of like game show music.
Yeah.
Like the new Price is Right or something. Come on down.
God, I can't remember how many coins I dumped into an Outrun machine when I was young and heard this song blaring through those really horrible speakers at the back. Really.
Oh, I absolutely loved that game.
Yeah.
Back then in the 80s, and countless hours of fun cruising in a Ferrari Testarossa and trying to beat that time. And those songs, like the whole. I remember back in the day, I had Outrun. I had a Commodore 64 computer at home, and I had the Outrun game. I remember when I think I bought like a magazine, like a Commodore 64 magazine back in the day, and it actually had the soundtrack.
Oh, I had that too.
That came with the magazine, and it was the songs from Outrun, and then on the other side there was a game called 720 Degrees, the skateboarding game, Skate or Die, and it had that on the other side. And I was a kid back then, and I loved the music. Even when I wasn't playing the games, I'd like play the tape and be like, I love this music. And as I grew older, I was like, one day I'm going to cover like all that stuff. And we ended up doing Outrun, so the Passing Breeze from Outrun.
I'm pretty sure that was a Zapped 64 magazine, maybe. And the old cassette was sticky taped to the front of the magazine.
Yeah, that's right.
At the newsagent.
I remember I had that tape for the longest time, and then around the time I was going to record like this the other EP, I was like, where's that tape? And I tried looking everywhere. I didn't have it anymore. And I remember I had hunted around online, and I finally found a guy that had the damn tape, and he uploaded a version for me so that I could have it, have the music again, and I could work out the songs.
So I'm going to jump over now to the Ultraviolent. So this is the last album that you guys did. So, and this was a massive project. Like, you spent a damn lot of time recording this. And
yes.
As you said earlier, you disappeared for a long time, and I remember like constantly asking for updates, what was going on. And I remember a time too where I was lucky enough to come over to your house, and I got to hear the whole thing minus vocals at your house, and was just, I remember that night so well. My jaw was just, and I just kept looking at you and Chantel going, oh, this is fucking amazing. Like,
yeah, I remember that night too.
Yeah, totally.
You were one of the few people that I let listen to before it was finished. I remember Chantel. There was just a couple of other friends as well that I was like, oh, listen to this. I'll go, maybe a few too many beers. We'd been out somewhere. I'm like, hey, listen to this. And I remember Chantel was always saying to me, like, are you sure? You sure they're allowed to? Like, are they sure you're going to let them listen? And there's a few people that I trusted.
And I think you sent it to me for my birthday too. I think it was a few days before it dropped. I was lucky enough to get that too. So
cool.
So what I want to talk about with this, what I'm going to do, just stop this from playing. While we're talking about this, what I'm going to do is bring up this. Make sure the sound's down. So we'll talk about this, I guess, first. This is some of the artwork and stuff that went into this whole massive project. Can you tell us a bit about all this stuff?
Yeah, so there's the actual album, like the audio, and that's a story in itself.
We'll get to that.
But when it came to, there was always going to be an extra element to it, and that's the imagery that went along with the artwork and the characters, that were going to appear on the album. And you can see the band photo coming up here that we took and heavily edited. But and then eventually it was like, hey, like, we're going to do film clips and things like that. And I mean, the whole idea behind the album, in the end, it became a concept album that was going to have an overriding story. And there was just all these sort of loose, random songs, but I kind of, put them all together and was like, there can be this big story. And so I came up with a story, and that helped us, perform the songs or play the songs and come up with lyrics and all that kind of stuff. But then there was also going to be these video clips. And so I contacted a fella by the name of Jared Elvin, who's an artist, a comic book writer, and an animation artist. And I'd seen some of his work, met him through other mutual friends, and contacted him online whether he was interested in collaborating, and he was. And so he got to work on the first single that we had, which was Caveat Emptor, and that's some of the art that you're seeing now come up. He came up with all this beautiful concept art. I remember when I first talked to him about it and was sending him the ideas and like the script, basically, I looked at it and I thought, this is going to be overwhelming for him. Like, who's going to take this? Who would ever take this on? It's crazy.
Yeah, it's
like
mad.
What we were attempting to do. But Jared, he just an amazing artist. He was like, yeah, no problem. And he went away like for, a week or whatever and started coming back with these sketches and stuff. And I was blown away. Like, I was just like, oh, wow, like this is the guy, and then that eventually moved on to the actual animation phase. Well, he was doing the, like I said, the scenes and stuff that were just up before, and they were great. And then eventually the animation came in, and but all these designs that he did, the character design, the design of the city that we used in that first clip, all the landscape stuff, like it was painstakingly done by Jared. Like I said, he's absolutely amazing. Like it was we were talking about collaboration before, like this was an amazing collaboration.
Yeah.
I don't really see how I could have found anyone else to work with, like, because who would put up with me as well and all these crazy ideas that I had, and Chantel and I collaborated with Jared at length, and he was very patient with us and we were very patient with him. There was times where it was like, hey man, like, maybe that's going in the wrong direction, and he was happy to change stuff, and or sometimes he'd let us know the limitations of what he could do. And in the end, I mean, the work speaks for itself. I'm extremely proud of it. I know Jared is. I know the rest of the band is. And where it started, the Ultraviolet, to where it ended up, like, it's a pretty massive journey and very satisfying at the end to kind of see the end results. So we did the first video clip was Caveat Emptor, and then we did the second one, which was Buffed Silver is Shiny. And they were kind of done separately, but there was, like I said, this overarching story. And in the end, like I think you played it on your show, right? The long form version of the video where we kind of connected stuff and come up with more animation and like little joiny bits and other little bits to make a long version, like the Ultraviolet movie version, which and that came a little bit later, but that one in particular was extremely satisfying to do because it was more of a story.
Yeah.
At the beginning, there's a title sequence and that I always wanted to do. And I got a friend of mine, Josh Shipton, who's also a musician and a very talented man. He did the narration at the beginning, and there was little additions done. And like I got to make my mini movie, my animated movie that I did with Jared. And like I said, it was very satisfying to work with Jared. He was he's a very, very talented guy, and he's actually done some of the Mechanical Black stuff as well. And I hope to work more with Jared in the future.
Yeah, look, it's an amazing clip, and I think, I feel like it deserves to be played, the whole thing in this show, so we'll probably work it in to finish up the show with the whole thing, because it just is that fucking good, and everybody here really needs to see it, in my opinion. So we'll alter the show a little bit, because you know what? I can do that. So we're starting backwards, and I'm doing that on purpose. So let's talk about the recording of the album. So it's a massive undertaking, and even more so because, and we were discussing this last night, all of these instruments, pretty much, I'm going to go out on a limb here, like let's just say 93% of them, these are real-world instruments, marimbas. These are actually not synthetic instruments. Everything you did on this were real-world instruments.
That's correct. Yeah. I think you're right. Like it's in the high 90s in terms of if they're real, actually played instruments. So if you hear, we track the drums at another studio called Jungle Studios. I'm actually not sure if that place is still around, but the engineer that we recorded the drums with is Greg Stace. And he's actually the engineer that worked on the first Shanghai EP, Esoterica. So we recorded Esoterica a long time ago. And like I said, that was to tape and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, we worked with Greg then. We're really comfortable with him. And years and years later, like I bumped into him again and was like, hey, what are you doing? And asked him where he was working at. And so we went to track the drums there to work with him because we already knew him and it was easy. And he's a great engineer. And so we recorded at Jungle Studios into a big SSL mixing console desk, and
old school.
And it just really we felt at home working with Greg and working in a studio environment like that with the drums. And it's the same studio that we recorded the Mechanical Black drums as well. Yep. And so that was done in a proper studio, and then everything else was done like pretty much like wherever, like mainly at my house and my studio at home and stuff, but I also flew up to Queensland and recorded up there with the boys a few things, some of the saxophones, some of the bass. I also we did a bunch of stuff at rehearsal studios as well. There was a rehearsal studio just down the road from my house here in Marrickville. They have these big, massive rooms. They're awesome. They're not your average rehearsal studio, and in there we recorded a bunch of stuff, including like if you hear a saxophone on there, it's a real saxophone. You hear drums on there, it's real drums. If you hear guitar, it's obviously real guitar. If you hear a timpani on the album, they're real timpanis. Yeah. We hired 2 timpanis, and my brother Chris, the percussionist, he actually tracked all the timpani down at this rehearsal studio. All the percussion, he did all the percussion, like the xylophone, marimba, all that stuff on there. Glockenspiel, we tracked all that stuff. And like I said, we had string players come in, so we had multiple violins, viola, cello. All that was tracked in my lounge room.
I love it, man.
And because I really I could program all this stuff, I did like with MIDI and whatever. So the structures of the songs were there. Like I'd actually kind of already done MIDI versions of everything, and then went in and kind of like painted it all in like with real instruments and stuff. And for some reason, as it went more and more along, early on there was this attitude of, oh, that'll be all right. Like, that sounds pretty good. Like, we don't need to track real strings. But as we went along, I was like, no, I really, really want to though. And so it even got to the point where it was like, I mean, there's good emulations of organs and Hammond organs and electric pianos like Wurlitzers and Fender Rhodes and things like that I could have easily used. Like I could have used those emulations on the album, but instead we did track at another studio called Nut and Butter Studios, and that's here in the Inner West. And we went there and tracked there because they had a Leslie speaker and a Hammond organ, and they had a Wurlitzer electric piano and a Fender Rhodes electric piano, and we tracked all that. The Chantal tracked all that stuff, and like I said, we could have gotten away with not doing that, but we spent the time and the money to do it just because I would know, mainly I would know whether it was real or not. And there's just that satisfaction of recording like real instruments. And actually, we also recorded mini grand piano. Chantal recorded that in another studio called Oxygen Studios. And so yeah, she was very like, once we got to that point, that was towards the end. And like I said, we had MIDI piano in there that she played, and she was like, no, I want to play on a real grand piano and stuff. So we found a studio that had one, went there for a day and tracked it all. And it's all on there. You hear piano on there. It's playing a mini grand piano at Oxygen Studios. But I'll stop waffling. But there's also there's a song on there called Tian Lu, which my brother actually wrote. I collaborated with him on that song, and he that song kind of came late in the piece, and we'd already tracked the drums, and but we really wanted the song on there and stuff, and so we actually, I wish I had a picture. I probably got a picture somewhere of it, but we had to build this sort of, I call it the trash can drum kit. So it was all pots and pans, and I think there was like a washing basket as a kick drum, like I said, saucepan lids for cymbals and things like that. And we built this monstrosity, put it up here in my lounge room, and mic'd it up. And Nick played this trash can drum kit in Tian Lu. So, we improvised at that point. So yeah, even if you hear pots and pans and stuff like that, they're not samples. It's a legit kit that we constructed and recorded. Yeah.
And you can tell, like, I think you can tell too. Like, I think as a bit of an audiophile myself, as soon as, and I wasn't aware of all that till last night, that it was all instruments, like, that, you actually confirming it for me. But, like, when I heard it, I just assumed it's like, because I've seen you live, and I know you guys pull it off live. And that's another thing too, to be able to pull this stuff off live you've got,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, like, you have to be able to record this stuff as a band if you're going to pull it off live. If you're relying on just doing it all synthetically, it's not really going to carry over live. And
I'm a big stickler for, I never like recording anything, like for me personally, like if I'm recording it, but I don't like recording something that I know that I can't play. Like you can get away with things, right? You can edit fast stuff, or like edit every note and make it perfect and do these speed runs or whatever. But if I can't play them, I kind of feel a bit fake, Same with like singing and vocals, you can auto tune stuff, and that's fine. Like if it's like correcting stuff that you can do, just adjusting things, that's all fine. That's fine tuning. But if you're like, recording a vocal and it's got this high stuff that is out of your range and that you're never going to be able to replicate live, then I shy away from that. I'm like, no, I need to write and record within my means. And even the Shanghai stuff, we're recording all these real instruments. So they had to be playable, by somebody at least. So,
yeah.
I mean, there's even even the horn players. So Grant, he plays tenor saxophone and baritone saxophone on there, but he also plays flute. So any flute you hear on there, that's Grant. But he can actually play it. On live, he takes his baritone saxophone, he takes his tenor saxophone, and he takes his flute, and he actually plays that stuff live. And even Davin, he plays alto sax, but on the album he also played clarinet, and he had to actually teach himself how to play. It's I don't know if it's similar, but it's the brass and the woodwind, there's a technique there that's similar with the reeds and stuff, and he taught himself to play the clarinet to be able to play the clarinet parts on the album. And Paul, our trumpet player, he's a multi-instrumentalist as well, so he played the trumpet, but he also played trombone, and he played French horn. He had a French horn of all things, and knew how to play it. So he spent a couple of days here recording French horn for the orchestral parts, and I think all of that fills out the sound and makes a big difference in the final product. There's some songs in particular, like there's a song on there called A Murder of Crows, which was written by Alan Davin and myself, and in there's this wonderful build-up where it goes from basically a ukulele guitar and it just slowly builds and builds and builds, and sort of by the peak, it's only the middle part of the song, but by the peak, at its peak, there's like I said, a full orchestra. There's all these violins, there's French horn, there's flutes, clarinets, timpanis, xylophones, all going off. It was just extremely satisfying to hear that finished result, because I know that everything there's real. Like we played all that stuff, and we play that song live sometimes. We can't have obviously all the stuff in there live with just our 9-piece band, but we get pretty close.
Yeah, and I long for the day when you get to play again, and I know if it is in Sydney or somewhere here, I'm definitely flying wherever to come and see it, because it's been so long. It would be like going to see Mr. Bungle again, in my opinion. So what we'll do now, we'll come back to Shanghai a little bit towards the end, because we'll end up playing the thing. What I'm going to do now is give you a little bit of a break from jabbering on it a little bit. And
sure.
Let's throw on a song which we didn't air when we had Riley on the show from Mechanical Black. So we'll jump into there next. And this is Ghost Milk. So this is unreleased as yet, so it's coming on. It's on the forthcoming.
Well, Ghost Milk, the single is out.
So it's on YouTube.
The album that it's from is
the album's not out.
Almost there.
Yeah,
not quite. Yeah,
that's what I meant.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll jump into this. This is Ghost Milk by Mechanical Black. So, folks, enjoy as I get my shit together. Oh yeah.
Something
to turn up my mic. Incredible stuff, man. Look, I can't wait for the Mechanical Black album to drop. I've been a part of it along the way. It's been another album that's a long time in the making.
Yes.
But again, a totally different styles. I mean, what's fantastic about Mechanical Black, in my opinion, is all the complexity of something like Shanghai, a much smaller band and a totally different, more of a metal kind of direction, but still like just as complex and intricate. And and we had Riley on the show. If you haven't seen that interview, I'll pop a link for those watching on the replay up there, over there. In the on the video on replay, so you can watch that interview. How did you get involved with Mechanical Black?
Well, we're a metal band. I call it trans metal.
Yeah.
Metal. I talked about how my first band was a metal band, and that never left me. I still love my metal these days, and there's a little bit of. I always say Shanghai is like 5 or 10% metal, and I'd yearned to look. I played in other bands along the way. There was another band that I was in early on in the '90s called the Merkins, and that was kind of like great name, right?
Yeah.
That was like a grungy stoner rock band. Great band. I love playing in that band. We've done tons and tons of gigs, some great shows over the years with big acts. And we released an EP a long time ago. So there was that band. And then I've also got another band called the Locust Scene, who I think we're going to listen to a song a little bit later, which is a rock band and blah, blah, blah. So I was playing in these sort of, rock bands and, the Shanghai and blah, blah, blah. But, I had this yearning to play in a, Shanghai to play live, and even some of my other bands, like, was pretty demanding. Like in the Locust Scene, I was the front man. In Shanghai, I was the front man and doing a lot of stuff all the time. And I really just wanted to be in a normal band, like a metal band, just play guitar and just have fun, and not worry too much about the being too technical. Of course, that all changed along the way. Now I sing, play guitar, and play keyboards live at the gigs, and it's actually quite complex now. But the idea was, to just be this like a guitarist. Or the original idea was for me to play bass in Mechanical Black, but I ended up playing guitar. But Mechanical Black was a project that was started by Riley, and at the time Mel Stone was in the band, and she played with you as well.
Yeah, she was in DreadCircus. Yeah,
she was in DreadCircus, and so Mechanical Black. I mean, the idea was, for me, Riley anyway, and I know it was for me. It was, I guess I define as queer, and I enjoyed dressing up. I guess it's a call. I don't know how to describe it, but I enjoyed wearing clothes that weren't, the social norm, and taking on the appearance, a more feminine appearance and things like that. There was that side of me as well, and so I wanted to be in a band basically where I could play guitar or whatever, and dress as how I liked.
Yeah.
And that, and to feel comfortable doing that, and there was just this sort of draw and attraction to that, and so that's how I found Mechanical Black. I came across, there was someone posting on a certain website, and that person was Riley, looking for people to play in a band and that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, this is exactly what I want to do. And talked to Riley, and eventually met with him. And I remember one night, and you were there.
We all met in that group.
You were there, and Riley had already started. He'd done all these demos and stuff, and the band was called Velvet Phallus.
It was
at the time.
Yeah, typical Riley. Typical Riley. Velvet Phallus.
Very tongue-in-cheek name.
Yes.
And that's why we ended up changing that name, because it was like. I remember that night meeting you and a bunch of other wonderful people, and Riley as well, and Mel, and we listened to the music that he had been working on, and I was like, yeah, I'm in. Like, I want to do this. Like, let's do it. And so we started. We were working on that, what would become the first album for Mechanical Mechanical Black, which was Reborn, and I contributed some songwriting to that, and I performed on it and helped to mix and record a lot of the tracks, and I was involved pretty heavily in the production by the end of it, production wise. I mean, there was another engineer that was also mixing some of the tunes, a man called Paul Gomisel, who's a very prolific producer that was, some of the albums that he's worked on have sold millions and millions. So it was good working alongside a seasoned pro like him. But we were there. He has a studio up in Byron Bay, and we flew up and mixed the album and mastered the album up there with him. And that was really, really fun. But the idea for Mechanical Black at the beginning, like I said, was to dress up like a girl and play guitar and play metal, actually, of all things. And so, I guess, in a way, I've heard some of your stories and stuff, and with music, and you used to obviously play extremely heavy music at some point. And the funny thing is that we found along the way, I think, from some of the stories that you told me, is how accepting the music community can be, especially the metal music community. Because I feel like, I mean, even now, I still feel like we're challenging people's perceptions, especially dudes, dudes into metal, and they're like, oh, what's happening? I like the music, but I don't know what's going on with these guys dressed as chicks, I guess is the way that they put it. But for me, I'm not trying to challenge people. I just want to be me, I just want to be myself and enjoy myself. And I mean, in Shanghai, I don't dress like I normally dress when I'm walking down the road or sitting at home or whatever. I get into character on stage, I'm performing and stuff. It's still me. It's how I want to look. And I wear what I want, I want, you want to put across a certain a part of you, expression of you. And so Mechanical Black is very much about that. Even more so, I guess, we were talking about Kiss before and the image and things like that. Shanghai has its image, Mechanical Black has its image, and Mechanical Black also has a messaging behind the music, which is really important too. I mean, Reborn being an album that is a concept album as well, and it's about transition, and so we don't take that topic lightly or anything like that. It's very serious, and that's why in the song in the album with the album if you actually pay attention to the lyrical content and the journey that it goes on, like where it begins and then where it ends up, it's actually quite beautiful, and it's actually I think it's a story that's would be very familiar to a lot of people that have been through that. So I don't identify as trans myself, but I do feel part of the community. I don't know, what do you think about labels, Jade?
I'm kind of labels.
Yeah, I'm kind of that. I'm trying to be I guess respectful and polite, in terms of how I address a conversation like this, because I know how sensitive it can be.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand too, and it's part of the reason I kind of keep out the conversation, especially in the trans community, because I've never really fit in it myself anyway. I kind of came out and went through all those struggles, got to where I need to go, and now I kind of just don't give a fuck what anybody thinks. And over the years, I've really disavowed using the word trans for a while. I mean, my album was called Gender Optimized. As an artist, I call myself a sonic disruptor. I try and always come up with different words for these names we give everything that have these negative connotations to try and break away. I have a song called Correcting the Blueprint, and that's what I think transition is about. Instead of transition, because I think transition, is very limiting, Lewis, because we're all in transition, and if you're not living. That's my opinion, and if I think transition fits everybody. So
I agree. Yeah.
To be labelled with this thing like it's a bad thing, because it does get looked at like that. Where I like to give it more positive feeling like I'm gender optimized. I'm an upgrade from my former self. And, and I'm smiling from now on, you know, try and make it a bit happier. Where a lot of the trans community, you know, man, it's some pretty sad stuff out there. People are pretty depressed in that community, getting trodden on all the time. And I know labels are a very important thing to them, so I don't want to shit on people's concept of what they're labeled as, but we all have our way of dealing with it, and mine is just be your fucking self and be fucking happy.
That's what I was saying. Like, I always try to be as respectful as I possibly can, because I know some people can be quite sensitive, and that's fine. You know, like, life isn't easy. Like, some people have it harder than others, though, and I know that. Like, I definitely don't feel like I can speak for like other people. I speak for me, you know, and those close to me. So but I take it all on board and stuff, and it does relate to me a lot. Like, I mean, it's stuff like even sexuality, like, you know, there's this whole pick a team thing. You're either heterosexual or homosexual, and like even the homosexual communities, like, you know, they're kind of like, not everybody, and I don't mean to paint, you know, everyone with the same brush, but, you know, like there is this sort of judgment on both sides, you know. Whereas I don't see myself on either of those teams. I'm in the middle, you know. And then some people label, oh, you're bisexual then, and it's like, well, not really. Like, you know, sexuality's fluid, and it is my belief. Like, you don't have to pick a team, and it can change day to day.
For
like,
sure.
It doesn't really have to. You don't have to pick a team, and there can be you know, there's a broad kind of fluid sort of area in between. Like, you can have preferences and, you know, likes and dislikes and the whole thing, and it doesn't have to be this. I find it strange that people still, the default when a child is born, if it's a boy, you know, you dress them in blue, and, you know, they're automatically heterosexual, and they're going to grow up one day and marry a girl and have kids, right? I mean, that's kind of the default.
Yeah.
And if it's a girl, you dress them in pink, and yeah, she can go to school and stuff, but eventually she's going to have children and she'll be someone's wife. And I know that's slowly changing, and not everyone thinks that way, but the default in society is still that. And I find that really strange. It's like, why are people picking, like, deciding for this child, like, who they are and who they're going to be? Like, don't make that call. Let them make that call as they grow. Like, you know, they're going to get influenced by things around them, but I think labeling them straight out of the womb, I don't see how that's, you know, I don't think how that's constructive as a progressive society.
For sure.
I think leave them in the middle there, you know, like, and let them decide for themselves. And, you know, I think that way about a lot of facets of human life and stuff. And obviously, people's gender is another conversation. It doesn't have to relate to sexuality, but, you know, it's I think of it in a similar way, where you know, I like people being happy being themselves, you know, like how they want to identify, and you know, how they want to be perceived, how they want to interact, like, with others, how they want to dress, what they would want to be called, and this, that, and the other, and how they feel. And, you know, it's but to me, it's like, whatever. If, you know, if they're not hurting anyone else, like, then who cares? Like,
yeah. Who's got time to worry about that? There's so many other great things on this beautiful planet to be doing, you know?
Yeah,
to worry
but that's the thing with Mechanical Black. Yeah, that was an important part about Reborn, was that, like, kind of describe, you know, Riley was more deep into the lore, like the trans kind of community lore and how to approach that stuff. And I think he has his own story that he could tell about where he's at with that. But I know that how I identify, I'm pretty comfortable with. But again, I feel like I'm part of that community. I have a lot of friends in that community, and I feel very strongly about it. And Reborn obviously has its subject matter centered around that, like the human element of transition mainly. But then this next album, it's called Continuum, and it continues on the story. And this next album is more about human consciousness. You know, it gets really deep on the brain level. And it kind of focuses a lot, it's a different kind of transition. It's more like the transition from human to like a cyborg type thing. So like transhumanism type of thing. So it's like the next journey, the next level, and that includes body augmentation and things like that. But it's also about the mind, and so like a lot of the topics, like Ghost Milk, for instance, the song we heard before, the lyrics and the title of the song and things like that, it kind of relates a lot to that, to the consciousness, and in particular how that applies to artificial intelligence. So AI, and whether AI will eventually be able to have that kind of human-like consciousness, whether we can eventually end up replicating that, whether computers can end up and robots can end up having real human emotions. And I don't know if you find that stuff interesting, but Riley and I certainly do. And that's what the concept of the next album continuum is. So all the songs kind of relate a lot to that.
And this album's going to be coming out shortly, so soon. Yeah. So, but
we were hoping to have it finished this year, but some things have happened recently that kind of put the brakes on a little bit. So it'll be out early next year.
Yeah. So I'm going to jump in and play a premiere now. So we're going to jump over to this.
Did everyone say hi to my dog, Ruby?
we've had an animal show today. So we've had. As Russ pointed out, that dog that was on the chair has turned into a cat now. So just to prove that it hasn't.
So yeah, that's my my cat Yoshi. Yeah.
We're going to jump over.
They're my studio buddies.
Yeah. I'm going to play your latest. This is a premiere because nobody's really heard this. So this is another project of yours called the Locust Scene, and this is the Crowded Room. So I'm going to play that, and then we'll come back and have a talk about that, if that's cool.
Cool. Awesome.
All right, let's do it.
Thanks, Jade.
Very, very, very tight indeed, as Russ has just written in the chat there. So is this coming out on an album? How's this going to be released?
Yeah, so like in the image there, that's the album cover, and it's called In Technicolor. So the Locust Scene in Technicolor, and yeah, it's another album that's been worked on for a long time, and gone through a big process. Some of these songs go way back, like over 10 years, like 15 years ago, and we've slowly chipped away at it and worked on it. There's been we talked about before about working in collaborations and that kind of stuff. Like this is one of those bands where there's been things along the way that have inhibited the release of the album, or the finishing it, and we had little falling outs and lineup changes and things like that along the way. But I mean, it's still great music, and like the guys in the band and me, really proud of the music and can't wait to release it. So it's after Mechanical Black, that'll be the next album that I release. That song is called The Crowded Room, and yeah, that's me singing there and playing lead guitar at the end. It's very different, obviously, to Shanghai and Mechanical Black. It's more straight up rock stuff, but it's got sometimes it has like I think you said Muse. Did you say, Jade? When you heard it,
I said Mechanical Black, Muse, and Secret Chiefs 3.
But
just that surfy thing, that surfy vibe in there too.
Okay.
That's where that came from.
Okay, yeah. There's I get the Muse thing. Is some of the songs on the album a bit more like Radiohead or something like that, or Queens of the Stone Age, like I don't know, that kind of stuff. But yeah, like anything I work on, like every song's different, and on the album, like they're touching on many different. Look, someone in the chat just said it reminds them of Queens of the Stone Age. So I'd probably agree. But the songs, every song's different on the album. They all relate together and they fit in the theme of the album. But I think, are you like that where? I don't like repeating myself, so I like, especially when I release an album material, I want all the songs to stick out on their own, like, and not for someone to go, look, like I didn't want Esoterica, Shanghai's first EP, I didn't want Ultraviolent to sound like that necessarily. I wanted it to relate, but I didn't want to do Esoterica Part 2. And there were some people that were fans of that first EP that were expecting that, and then they were surprised when Ultraviolent wasn't that. But hopefully they were surprised in a good way.
Yeah, I think we're very much similar in that regard because, I don't want to release the same album each time. And every one of my DreadCircus albums have been totally different. And the next one, which I've been working on for forever, is like 22 tracks. And I've tried to make it, I think naturally it sounds like a different band, each song kind of thing. There's heavy stuff, there's jazz stuff. It's I think it's a style of music, the music that I listen to as well. I listen to such a broad range of art that it just naturally comes out as being everything shoved into a pot. And Mr. Bungle is like my favorite band, so that's the type of music I like, to throw everything in. Obviously, I don't have the skill set as one person to create a whole Mr. Bungle album by myself. So you spread it across a number of songs.
Yeah, like I think I guess like we grew up around the same time and stuff, and I think the influence of television and movies, especially TV, like Saturday morning cartoons and Sunday morning cartoons and things like that. Like on the Shanghai EP that you put up before the cassette tape, there's Battle of the Planets. That was a cartoon that I used to watch every afternoon after school. And you mentioned Monkey as well. Like I used to love watching Monkey Magic, and just all this music that you're absorbing as a kid watching these shows, like even the like Looney Tunes and stuff, like Bugs Bunny or whatever. Like the composer was Carl Starling that did a lot of the music for all those old Warner Brothers cartoons, and he's amazing. He's a massive influence. I've got a few collections of his songs that he did for the cartoons, and like even stuff like Bugs Bunny. If he'd walk up some stairs, like there'd be the piano, right? Bum, 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 and he'd fall down the stairs. Boom! Like the music was like Foley as well that went along with the action, and like that kind of, I think that sticks with you, like as a musician, like if you were paying attention, and I think you were, and I was, and I think the Bungle guys were, and that's where we kind of get that appreciation for that stuff, because we actually grew up with that stuff, the manic sort of music in some of those cartoons and TV shows that we grew up with. And then, like I said, that goes on to film music and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. Someone just mentioned Rolf Harris. Yeah. Rolf Harris used to do cartoon time here. Yeah, no.
Yeah, he used to do a few other things too, unfortunately.
Fortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, so the Locust Scene, so Mechanical Black early next year, Locust Scene hopefully, maybe mid next year. They're two albums that I'm very proud of, and I can't wait to have out and finished, and then I can move on to the next thing.
And I can't wait as well. And I'm sure you've gained some new fans here today, definitely. So we're gonna jump around because I want to play a song, and we're definitely not gonna have enough time to play the whole 15-minute full version. So I'm probably gonna play. What am I going to play? Anyway, we'll get there. What I'm going to do is just have a quick break from talking about this. I got a competition I'm going to run, so we'll get this out the way. Then I'll get your final thoughts on just music, and then we'll finish up because Pete Johns has a show coming up directly after this in about 9 minutes, so I will get off in time for there. Because we did cover some of the points I had written here anyway. We're talking about like how you recorded the album and stuff. So,
just quickly, someone mentioned earlier what my main guitar was.
Yes.
I just wanted to show. It's my Rickenbacker. My Rickenbacker guitar, and I love this guitar. I've owned it for over 20 years now.
Yeah.
And it's features prominently on all my music. I've got tons of other guitars. They're over here. I've got plenty of Fender guitars, a Gibson Les Paul as well, and et cetera, et cetera. But they all different tools to achieve different results guitar-wise. But the Rickenbacker features very heavily. It's a very unique and very comfortable guitar to play for me.
It's a beautiful guitar. So let's just jump in and get this out the way because, it's just a competition, so we'll smash it out the way. So we had some people enter for the Bleass Saturator app during the week, and there were 29 of you who entered, and we're going to give away 2 of them now. As you can see, I've got a random number generator, and we're going to do it nice and quickly like this. So number 9 is the first winner, which is Lou Becker. So I'll put a star next to this name here. So you're seeing I'm doing it live, so nobody's getting... everything's fair and above board. And let's generate the second one here. And it's number 2, which is... Doctor's Orders! So cool, Doctor's Orders. Congratulations to both of you. You have won that. I will leave a link to my email address and you can get in contact with me via there and I'll send you out that code. So we've covered the competition side of things. We can get back to here. All right. I'm going to ask this. What advice would you give to somebody just starting out playing music?
Someone starting out playing music, like recording their own music and all that as well.
Yeah, recording music. Dipping their toe into the recording thing.
Yeah, as discussed earlier, like when I was young and studying this, it was very difficult to actually record your own music and get your ideas down. Now it's obviously a totally different landscape, very easily to record. So, I think number one, like I think a regret for me, not really a regret, but kind of is, I never got any formal education in actually playing an instrument. So, like I think actually getting tuition. I wish that I'd gotten piano lessons or something like that at a young age. So I think if you are really passionate about your music, you can do it without it. But if you can seek any help from a playing angle, if you're going to be a player, I think that's very useful, especially, sight reading music and things like that. I've learned along the way how to I've had to give, because we had violin players and this and that had come in to record. I had to, give them something to play. I couldn't just go play it by ear. Luckily Cubase, my main software that I use, is that's got a really good score editor in there. It's a bit clunky, but it gets the message across. And so anyway, so the technical side of stuff I think is important as a player. You can get away without it. I have, and you can learn along the way. But I do think having a solid grounding helps. And then the other side of it is you know, if you're going to be a songwriter, if you're going to compose your own music, try to write something every day. And like I said, it's easier now to capture that. So if you've got your phone or your iPad or a laptop or a Mac or whatever, you know, you've got the tools there, like at your fingertips to be able to record your ideas. So record everything you do. Try to do something every day, actually. So even if it's just not a whole song, or, you know, it could be just a riff, or it might be a lyrical idea. I've got this massive, I've got the Notepad app in on my phone, and I'm constantly writing down lyrical ideas or song titles or just cool phrases and words that I like, that I'll then dig. It's like a vault that I can dig in later when I'm stuck for ideas, or, you know, I want to be inspired or whatever. So document everything you do and try and do it very frequently, every day. Like, do a little bit of work every day. It's not really work, is it? Like, you know, but, you know, getting your ideas down is important. So don't, you know, even if a day goes by, like the next day, just do a bit more then and try to keep at it, because that's something even that I find it hard to do, and I still do it. But you know, I wish I was more prolific. But you know, the ideas are all there. It's just about finding the time to, you know, to finish them, to polish them and finish them. But you know, don't let your ideas run away from you, I guess is what I'm getting at. Like, try to document everything that you do and try to do it regularly. And that way you you know, you get into a routine of being creative. You know, like some people, you go through. Do you ever go through writer's block?
Oh yeah, every day.
Yeah, so it's that kind of. I think that's the hardest thing to overcome is writer's block. It's happened to me as well, but I think now I'm pretty good at and have sort of a vault of ideas that I can sort of go to. And that's actually something I just wanted to quickly touch on, because we didn't talk about it before, is your song, It's Over, that we collaborated on, which you did an absolutely wonderful job. I definitely wouldn't have sung what you sung. I definitely wouldn't have come up with that. It was that block, you know, like I had this song, this music, it was like, I felt it needed singing and vocals, and I thought of you. I thought, like, who's a good singer that I know that would like this, like, that could feel it, because it's not your average song either. No. You know, so, and I gave it to you, and what you came back was absolutely perfect, blew me away, and I know it blew Luke, the director, away as well. And so that was at a time, that Terror by Night, when I was writing that stuff, where I did have a bit of writer's block. But I was also simultaneously working on Shanghai and some other, and the Mechanical Black stuff and that other stuff. But Terror by Night, the short film that Luke did, and he needed music to, that came along at a good time, because it moved me away from this other stuff that I'd been slugging away at. And I did have all these ideas that I'd stockpiled that I could now kind of release into, you know, I watched his film and stuff, and I thought, oh yeah, that'll go good there, that'll go good there, and blah, blah, blah. And that came together relatively quickly, because I had all these ideas to feed off. You know, I think if I didn't, it would have been like, what the hell do I do? I'd have to on the spot come up with these ideas, which I could have done, but I don't think it would have been as, I don't know, it would have been different. I don't think it would have been as fluid. But so the interesting thing, just talking about Luke as well, is like working on that. I've also worked on other things with him, and that's been very satisfying, is doing, you know, kind of dipping my toe into the film music world and stuff. So that's been really cool, because I've been wanting to do that for a long time. And Luke, like you played the Shanghai clip earlier for Shenanigans. Yep. Luke actually helped us make that film clip as well. So he was co-director, and he helped edit that clip as well. He was on set. That film clip, it was a 2-day shoot, like really ghetto. Like, it was at this rehearsal studio that was down the road from my place, a big room. We blacked it out and, you know, lit it, and like Chantel was director of photography, she lit the whole scene and stuff. Came out pretty good. It was pretty ghetto. We did it all like no budget, and like, but we had the equipment and stuff. And yeah, Luke helped us shoot that in 2 days. But then it was like months of work afterwards. Like, Luke did a rough edit, and then I, you know, kept at it for ages, like fine-tuning editing and adding effects. And I use a program called Premiere Pro by Adobe, and so which I completely self-taught too, by the way. But, you know, I got my way through it and stuff, and that was a very satisfying collaboration with Luke as well, because, like I said, I'd worked on his stuff, his movie stuff, and then he worked on a Shanghai clip, and I think he really, really wanted to work with us. I think he said it was like a bucket list thing to work with Shanghai and do a clip for us, and I think it came out pretty good.
Yeah, it's a great clip. I had no idea he was behind that. I didn't even know that. So
yeah, no, that was because you were talking about it's over, and your collaboration and my collaboration with Luke on that. It's just funny how we kind of feature in each other's things a bit, and yeah, that's another thing that we've worked on. He's filmed a bunch of live gigs for Shanghai in the past as well, and that kind of stuff. He's a good friend, but he's also a Shanghai fan, so he's really enjoyed doing that. And I've always been sort of open to working with him on his projects. There's other stuff that he's done, like he did Jared Elvin, the animator that did the Shanghai animation clips. He was working on another project with Luke, which hasn't surfaced yet, but I've done some music for that as well. So hopefully, I don't know, one day that'll come out as well. But that'd be a collaboration between Luke, Jared, and me, who we've all like worked with in Shanghai and
we're a bunch of sluts, aren't we?
And that kind of stuff. And then you as well. So yeah,
we've all slept with each other musically, haven't we? We're just a big circle of sluts here in Australia.
No, but I think it's really cool. Like I said at the beginning, I love the collaborative process and the friends you make along the way, the relationships. Like it's very satisfying, and having friends like you, amazing friends that are talented, and I look forward to everyone else's works, and I look forward to your album when it comes out as well. I know I've heard a lot of the songs from you. Give me sneak peeks at stuff, and there's a few songs that you haven't obviously put out yet, that I'm looking forward to, because I really like those songs that I've heard. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Thank you. Well, we're going to end this now because we are over time. But what I do want to say lastly is I want to thank you for also you can check out all of Lewis's links in the description, all the music that you've heard today, plus more. So go ahead and do that, please. So there's links to Apple Music, or you can find everything. There's so many links, it's ridiculous. If we had more time, there's so much stuff that you do, it's impossible to fit into a show. What I think we'll do is when Mechanical Black comes out, we'll have both you and Riley on the show together, and we'll cover a lot more then. But I want to thank you also today, because the last show we had Riley on was Trans Day of Remembrance, and I'm going to go here now just because. And I talked on that day how that day's a really powerful day for me, because it's also the day that I lost my mum. And on that day I was interviewing Riley. You unfortunately lost your dad on that day too. And fuck, man, if we couldn't be any more fucking connected.
It was the strangest thing. I remember I messaged, like I watched your live stream with Riley in the morning. And that was great. And my father has been sick like for the last couple of months, but he'd been doing all right. I watched your live stream in the morning, and then that like around midday, or just early afternoon, I got a call from my mother saying that he was going downhill quick, and she was calling an ambulance. And then like 5 minutes later, she called me and I said, the ambulance made it here, but your father's no longer with us or whatever. And I was like, what? And like, we were shocked and sad and all that stuff. And I went down to mum's and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, and I was thinking about it. I think it was that evening, right, that I messaged you.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about it. I thought, hey, like Jade was saying, like, today's Trans Day of Remembrance, and Jade was saying that she'd lost her mum on this day. And so, it was extra meaningful for you. And then I thought, this is just so like a weird, coincidence that my father passed away the same day. Like it was just, So sorry about your mum too, by the way.
And likewise, man.
Like I was already feeling for you, and then now, like I obviously, on some level, like kind of, I hadn't lost a parent before, so now I guess I know what it feels like. But it's not a good feeling. But I mean, you said some like really nice things to me, that helped, and it was good to have a friend that I could connect with and get the support on that day. And I'm really grateful that we're friends, I guess, and that that we have this connection.
Yeah, I think November 20th each year is going to be a day. I think I'm going to make a conscious effort to either come to Sydney or I'm going to have a drink with you every year on that. And I don't give a shit wherever it is. I will find you and come and have a drink with you that day. So
sounds good.
So we're dedicating today's show to your dad as well. So and you know, we're going to close.
Thanks, Jade. Thanks a lot.
We're going to close it out today, and we're going to wrap it up with. I'm going to play the shorter version. So I'm going to play. You say Caveat Emptor? Is that how you say it? Caveat. Why do I do that? We're going to play Caveat Emptor.
Well, I'm not 100%. It's like it's Latin.
Yeah, it's caveat now.
I say Caveat Emptor. Yeah.
So we're going to wrap up with that because it's a shorter version of the whole clip. If you want to see the whole 15-minute clip, it is in the description. And we're going to wrap it up there. So thank you so much, my friend, for coming on. Thanks for everything. Thanks for being a great mate. And thanks for making such great music and being so inspirational to me and my music throughout the years. I value it so very much.
Likewise, Jade. Thank you very much. And thanks to everyone that's been in the chat and been watching and stuff. Like, it's been fun reading that and the interactions as well. But yeah, thank you so much for having me on, Jade. Like I said, the feeling's mutual. So
we're family. Love you. All right.
Love you too, Jade.
So, folks, enjoy this. This is Shanghai, and we'll see you. I'm probably going to jump on Patreon. If you're not a Patreon, do all that. You can join as a Patreon. I'm going to be taking a first look at that new app from IK Multimedia today. So that's another thing. And if not, you can catch on Monday, and we'll be giving away a copy and all that stuff. So this is Shanghai and Caveat Emptor. Have a great weekend, folks. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
My God, it's full of stars.